Starting. All right. Welcome. Thank you everyone for joining us today. I am so happy to be talking to you all about gardening for the good bugs. We are going to have a lot of fun. We're going to learn a lot. I'm Suzanne Bontempo. I'm the program manager for Our Water, Our World. And today we are in partnership with the Vallejo Flood and Wastewater District and the Fairfield Sassoon Sewer District. They are our beautiful sponsors today. So I'm going to go through slides for about 45 minutes, and then I'll leave time for questions afterwards, which I'm happy to answer all your questions. As they come up, pop them into the Q&A or jot them down, take notes, and we can ask later. What we're going to learn today is who many of the common good bugs are that we're going to see in our gardens right now, because I'm seeing them right now, how they help us in the gardens, how they're our garden allies, and then how to keep them around, because that's a real big challenge, I'd say. So as Our Water, Our World program manager, I always start out, if you've seen my programs before, just introducing those of you that aren't familiar with Our Water, Our World. This is a program that is an IPM, or Integrated Pest Management Educational Program, that is designed for all of us as the public. We have a relationship with retailers that sell pesticides and different, and our partnership is with water pollution prevention agencies. Our Water, Our World is designed to bring awareness between pesticides and water quality. So we teach people how to solve pest problems with a less toxic approach, specifically to reduce polluting our waterways. You'll see the literature rack of Our Water, Our World fact sheets and many of the local retailers that sell pesticides around Solano County, as well as these little blue shelf talkers that go underneath the eco-friendly products to identify which ones are less toxic. You can also get more information on our website. So I also like to just remind everyone what integrated pest management is, or IPM. As an IPM educator and advocate, I get very excited to talking about this. So I'm just going to share that. IPM is a decision-making process that uses science-based strategies to solve pest problems. So it allows us to look at the system as a whole. And today it is really going to be very specific in our garden. And when we are using an integrated pest management approach, we have to identify what the problem is. And oftentimes what we're seeing are symptoms of the problem. So it really helps us to identify the problem through a handful of different tools and techniques, which I haven't really dived into much yet. But anyway, we also from there decide if it's a problem that we can live with, or do we know that it's short term and it's just going to be passing, like the spittle bugs. I've been talking a lot about the spittle bugs lately because I just showed up and they're always alarming. It looks like someone spit on your plants. But what I know is they're very short lived, usually a week or two. And it's so easy just to like blast them off with water and then they're gone. So nothing, it's just more of an eyesore, or, it's slightly alarming because it looks so weird, but it's not a problem that really needs any action beyond just maybe hosing it off. And then from there, we use, if action is needed, we use a combination of actions such as cultural controls, bolstering the health of the environment. That one's big. That one's really key, especially with our roses. Mechanical controls, these are the tools that we use to manage the pests. Biological controls, the living organisms we use to manage pests, which is pretty much our whole program today is dedicated to. And then the chemical controls, these are the pesticides, which we always want to go for a less toxic option. And we want to always be very specific about how we use that product, and typically as a last resort. It's not usually our first go-to. So from there, what I would like to share with you today is IPM methods for beneficial insects. And what that means is really identification is key. If we're not able to identify what the pest is or what the bug is, we might mistake it for a bad bug, and we might kill it by accident. And then IPM for beneficial insects also includes setting up our gardens for success, making sure our plants can be as healthy as possible, and then they're not going to be as attractive to pests insects. And then another key is growing biodiversity, having a nice diversity of flowering plants to attract a large number of insects that are good for us. And then reducing or eliminating pesticide usage, which I will talk about. So we're going to start with a really brief game, which is a lot of fun. I'm going to test your knowledge, but don't panic, it's short. So I'd like everyone to find the raised hand button on their screen. It's going to be at the bottom between chat and Q&A. If you can find that, go ahead and just hit the raise hand. Okay, awesome. Great. Oh, I see. Hi, Mona. Okay, fun. Okay, so we're excited. So we see this one in our garden. He looks really creepy, super weird. Do we squish him or not? If we squish him, raise your hand. If we squish, I mean, this little critter looks kind of weird. I might want to squish him myself. Do we squish? Yeah. Anybody else want to squish him? Look at those weird body part. I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? All right. We're going to go to the next one. Oh my gosh. Do you see? Okay, you come upon this one in the garden. Are we squishing it or not? Raise your hand if we're squishing it. Totally freaky deaky, right? Look at those spines. I don't even want it to touch me. I pretty much just wear garden gloves solely so that I don't touch snails and slugs by accident. They freak me out. But okay. Anybody else? Would anyone else squish this one? All right. Okay, cool. Okay, this one. How many of us would squish this one? This one's really weird. Yeah, totally weird. Oh my gosh. And what about this one? Now, a couple of you are on my Instagram page, so you have to be quiet, but how many of you would squish this? Oh my gosh, so crazy. Yeah, I know. It's funny, isn't it? Yeah, really weird looking. Okay. Well, guess what? They're all good bugs. Ah, it's so challenging when we're out in those gardens, right? Like, how can we tell? I know. Thank you. I just had to check the chat really quick. Totally wild. So let's meet our friends. So we know who this is, kind of the star of the show, gets a lot of attention in the garden. We always are on the look for the lady beetle, otherwise known as ladybug, pretty much all over the gardens right now. But this is kind of fun. There's over 450 different species of lady beetles in North America. That's a lot. I did not know that there was that many. And they're going to come in a variety of colors. So, and spot patterns. So they could be red and black like this. They could be black with red spots. That one's really cool. Sometimes they're gray with red spots. Sometimes they're kind of a khaki brown. These are all different species. Sometimes they're just all red or reddish orange. What I want to share is that all of them are going to be predators. So the lady beetle, the adult, is also hunting for food, going for that protein meal, and is going to be devouring a lot of soft-bodied insects. So something else I can share is both the adult and the larva are have very large appetites and are just wanting to consume insects. So through their life cycle, which their life cycle can either be a couple of months to over a year, depending on what time of the year they were born. Like the fall, they're going to overwinter. But if they're born, like if they're all hatching right now, they're just going to live through the next couple months. But during their life cycle, they can eat over 5,000 soft-bodied insects. Isn't that amazing? The ladybugs, lady beetles, someone's already asked, how do we get them to stick around? They're only going to stick around if there's food. So this is what's so important is that we need to have a different type of tolerance for the icky bugs. So the aphids and some scale insects and some thrips and some pests. I'll say I have a tolerance for letting a lot of aphids exist in my garden, and understand that the aphids are going to be very plant specific. There's again over 400 different species of aphids in the Bay Area, just in our greater part of, this area of California. And they're going to like specific plants. So when I know I've got, well, right now, fava beans that I never cut back because I didn't have time, and they're completely done with their life cycle, and they just got covered with that black bean aphid, which was just gooey and gross. And I mean, yeah, but right when I was about to cut them back, I just started to look a little closer, and they were just covered with lady beetles and consuming aphids. So that's how we keep them around. I can also share that ladybugs, lady beetles love the California native buckwheat. So that's what's pictured on right here. There's a lot of different types of California native buckwheat, but there it is documented that if there's a perimeter of buckwheat, it will not migrate past that perimeter. Now, I'm not sure if that's true, but it is a study that I read at one of the university papers. And so to keep them around, in addition to having food for them, we want to create a nice habitat for them. And that habitat is going to look like having an assortment of flowering plants, a nice variety of things that are going to look like daisies or be clusters of small flowers like the buckwheat, like ceanothus, like yarrow, like alyssum, things like that. And then we also want to include trees and shrubs because they use these plants as places to nest and to hide out in. And then we also want to provide a nice chunky mulch at parts of the garden. And also maybe after we've pruned a tree or pruned a larger shrub, keeping some of those branches and lining a path perhaps, or having them kind of lightly stacked in an area, because they also use that as a nesting area. So these are ways to keep the lady beetles around. Now this one, for all of you that wanted to squish it, this is the ladybug larva. And the ladybug larva, again, similar to the adult lady beetle, is going to come with a variety of colors and patterns. So this one here is this dark kind of grayish and black with kind of orangey spots or blotches. I've seen them all black. I've seen them dark gray with kind of a reddish orange blotches. I've seen them more orange and red coloring on them. But what's very unique about them, and you always will recognize them, they always have this form, this shape. They're going to be very tiny, anywhere from about 1/8 of an inch all the way up to possibly 1/2 an inch or just shy of 1/2 an inch. I am sorry, people have asked before, can you have like a picture of them next to the ruler? I'm not able to really do that. That's hard. It's already hard enough just to find the pictures, to see them in the garden and get pictures of them. So a lot of my pictures are from my garden, but then a lot of them are also from the UCIPM website. So, and other really cool locations. Anyway, so the larva is going to be around for about 2 to 4 weeks, cruising around just on the hunt for soft-bodied insects such as aphids, whitefly nymphs, mealybugs, scale insects, thrips, and so forth. And they do a pretty great job cruising around and just eating them like, little popcorn snacks. They can consume over 400 insects during this time. And spider mites and other small insect eggs are also going to be on their diet. So yeah, I have my little notes just to make sure I got all the facts straight, because we got a lot of bugs we're talking about. So this is the ladybug pupa. So from after the larval stage, it is going to go into this form, which looks like this very strange little dome. You'll see them on leaves, or in this case, I have this stake that was laying on the ground. So you see them around. They're all hanging out there at different forms of their moving into pupa or about to exit pupa stage. Sometimes they're going to be on the side of like a raised bed or on a fence, but check it out. They're going to be in this phase for anywhere from like 5 to 15 days. It's always fun to kind of go out and just check on them and see, have they emerged as an adult yet? Kind of look weird, but it's kind of fun. And again, you see all the different colorings. Some of them are more orange, some of them are more black or gray. So it's kind of cool. And then these are going to be the ladybug eggs. The ladybug eggs are always going to be in clusters of like 5 to 30. You'll see them underneath the leaves. It's pretty fun. They're this golden yellow little football, and they're always going to be up on their point. So you'll notice them. I've been pruning plants, and I always inspect my plants, and I happen to notice, oh gosh, I just cut some plant parts off that had eggs. So I've got this little nursery, a pile of cut plant parts in the shade, kind of in this area, so that I can let them hatch without going into the compost or the green waste bin. All right. So how many of us recognize this one? This is our green lacewing. It's always very exciting to see them. We might recognize them from fluttering around the porch light at night, but it's very exciting for me when I see them fluttering around my garden. They are going to be feeding off of pollen and nectar, and also the honeydew secretions that aphids make. So it is pretty cool to see them. I get very excited. I've seen quite a few this year. And depending on the weather conditions and the season, their lifespan is 4 to 6 weeks. They're pretty fun. Now, this creepy crawler is the Lacewing Larva. He's so tiny. First time I saw him or saw this little critter, gosh, had to be about 1/8 of an inch. Just, yeah, tiny. You can't even believe it when you see it, but you see them and they are so undeniably what they are. So that's what's so cool, is even though they're tiny and we might think we need to get our glasses on, oh, I do have my glasses on. No, that's them. It's really fun. So they're really cool. They are going to be 100% predator, 100% on the move, looking for food to consume. These little buddies are eating at the rate of 1 per minute. It's going to be aphids. It's going to be whitefly nymphs, spider mites, small caterpillars, other insect eggs, you name it, they're eating it. They are 100% on the move. In fact, they are so fantastic. They have a nickname. Their nickname is Aphid Lion. And this is really cool. When I was doing research for this program years ago, there's a study that was done on them. And I believe it was through Purdue. I'm pretty sure it was through Purdue, but what they discovered was these little insects are so smart. They would go in, eat some aphids, hollow them out, so they have the soft-bodied shell, outer of the aphid, throw it on their back so that they could use it as a decoy or camouflage to come in to eat more aphids. Isn't that wild? It just gets me every time. Anyway, these guys are little. They're going to be 3/8 of an inch up to 1/2 inch, but I'm telling you, they are super tiny. They have the spiny bodies and the piercing mouth parts, so they really can do a good job consuming a lot of different types of insects. And they'll eat upwards of, hundreds during their 2 to 3 weeks of being in the stage. It's pretty fun. So when I see lacewings, I get really excited because that means I'm going to have lacewing larvae. And what happens is that the lacewing adults lay their eggs. This is really cool. So the lacewings eggs are these little tiny, kind of creamy white, light greenish, little tiny mini, like, I don't know, domes, or like a little piece of rice. It just looks like a little, the head of a needle, right? And it's on this little stalk. And the reason why it's on the stalk is because when they hatch, they are so hungry. If they were all sitting by each other, if all the eggs were right next to each other, the first one that would hatch would eat all of the siblings, all the other eggs. So Lacewing adults are very smart. They've discovered if they lay their egg on top of a little stalk that they've created, then all of the eggs will hatch just fine, and they will consume all the insects in the area. Now, where you'll find these is where around an aphid infestation or another pest insect infestation. So that's where I invite you to check it out. So here's another one. This is the back of a leaf with all these aphids, and then those are the little tiny ladybug larva, all in black. So sometimes you see them all black, and they do look really weird, right? And then there is a lacewing egg right there. So cool. So I've been on the hunt. I've seen a lot of lacewing eggs in the garden, and it is just remarkable when you see them. So plants that the lacewings like are going to be anything that's kind of like in the carrot or aster family. So carrot family, that means, like Queen Anne's lace, dill, parsley. I even like to let my cilantro go to flower. In fact, I plant cilantro specifically for the flowers because, it bolts so quickly. You'll notice when you let the parsley, the cilantro, and any of those other plants that look like that go to flower, they'll just be swarmed with a lot of beneficial insects. Other plants like asters, right here in my background, or goldenrod, sunflowers, borage, arugula flowers, these are all going to attract the lace wings. It's pretty remarkable. So we just want to have a variety. Now, so let's just say we have a lot of aphids, like this huge aphid infestation, and we just really want the good bugs to come. And we're like, how can we? They're just not coming. And, Suzanne said it was so easy, just plant and they'll come. Well, if you want to try to attract them, you can make a recipe of 1 tablespoon of sugar with 1 cup of water, mix it up, and spray your plants or the area around the aphids with this sugar water, and it will definitely attract ladybugs and lacewings because they're going for that sugary substance, specifically from the aphids, that sugary secretion, the honeydew. So if we add a spray with the sugar water, that'll be really fun and it'll attract them. Okay, so this is one of my most favorites. This is our Surfeit Fly or hoverfly. Another name for it is flower fly. I just learned that there's 600 species of Surfeit flies in North America. That just blew my mind. I do see a lot of different varieties out in the garden, but I didn't know we had that many. Oh, wait. So the Surfeit flies, they're not, they don't have a stinger. They're not a bee. They're not a wasp. They're not going to swarm us. They want nothing to do with us. But what they are is a true fly. That has these really neat markings on them that look like a bee or wasp, and they are pollinating. They do a great job pollinating our flowers, and you might recognize them because they dart around the garden like a helicopter. They'll fly and they'll stop and hover, and then they'll dart over here and fly and start and hover, and they'll cruise around, and they specifically love flowers like yarrow, pictured here, cilantro flowers. I was seeing them swarming the coyote bush flowers. Their most favorite is alyssum, but really anything that is like a cluster of little flowers, they're going to be around. And this, has anyone seen this? This is the Surfeit Fly larva. So this is really tiny. In fact, I just saw the first 2 ever in real life the other day, and I did almost squish them because they are super tiny. Like these ones were very young. So one was the same size as the aphid, and one was even slightly smaller. And I really had to look close. So here's the deal. They're going to, because the Surfeit fly is a true fly, these are maggots, not a word we like to use, right? So I'll just call a little caterpillar-like worm. And the way you can identify them is that this is the one little like caterpillar that we're going to see that has this racing stripe down its back. Now they're small and it's very faint, but it is very identifiable. And they're going to come in a variety of colors, from lime green, pictured on the left, all the way to this kind of khaki olive color, kind of on the right. The one I saw was very translucent. It was kind of that olivey khaki, like the one pictured on the right, but it was very translucent and almost ivory colored. So that's where I had to really I second guessed myself, but I looked closer and I was able to really get a good, very close look. And they do look exactly like this. The shape of the one on the right, I'm sorry, the left, the lime green one, that's exactly how they look. That's the exact shape. So check it out. But like I said, they're going to be tiny, a 32nd of an inch, which is a millimeter, all the way up to half an inch. I have one of my colleagues will go out at dusk and look for them. And she says she always sees them on her roses. In fact, that's what this picture is from. And she says she sees them and they're perched out like this, frozen. And then all of a sudden, bam, they'll grab an aphid and start chomping on it. So I've been going out checking my roses, and that's how I found two. So it's really fun. Here's another picture of one. This one's a little larger. So it's about the size of 2 aphids long. But still, I think it would be really hard to find these if you're not looking. And then what we'll see is that the aphid eggs, they're going to be individual eggs. They're not in like a cluster or anything. And they're just like little weird kind of roundish grains of rice. They're just super tiny. And if you see they're about the same size as the aphid. So it's been hard to tell. I'm still, observing to see if I can identify one. But in the meantime, I know they're going to lay their eggs near a populated area where there's a lot of aphids, because when they hatch, all of the larvae of all the insects we've looked at so far, all they want to do is eat aphids and other soft-bodied insects. So I mentioned that the sweet alyssum is their most favorite flower, but they also, a couple more things, nepeta or catmint, yarrow, buckwheat flowers, cilantro, parsley, dill, other tiny flowers I mentioned. And their whole life cycle, the whole life cycle from egg to adult, is just 2 to 4 weeks. So they're very quick, but we do love seeing them around the garden, don't we? All right. So for any of you that saw my Instagram post today, Mealybug Destroyer, totally weird, right? So I've been presenting this program now for, I don't know, 6 weeks or something. And I've been talking about the Mealybug Destroyer every week when I present this program. And lo and behold, I got to see some. So check out my Instagram page if you're interested. They're cruising around with the Ladybug Larva. It's so fun eating aphids. So let's talk about them. The Mealybug Destroyer, both the adult and the larva. So the adult's on the right, very tiny. The larva is on the left. It's going to be a little larger. They both are on the hunt. They have very large appetites, and all they want to do is consume mealybugs like little popcorn snacks. The adults are tiny, just 1/6 of an inch, whereas the Mealybug Destroyer larva can grow to be up to about 1/2 an inch. Now, the ones I saw were ranging from about 1/4 of an inch to a little larger, not quite as large as 1/2 an inch. So they're going to be about twice the size of a mealybug, and this is how we identify them. When we have a mealybug infestation on a plant, which I'm so sorry because they are so challenging to manage, if we look a little closer, let's look for the Mealybug Destroyer larvae, because they're about twice the size of an aphid or mealybug. And if we see them, we do not want to spray. And sadly, the reason why we don't see these very often, because we don't recognize them, we don't notice to look a little closer to a mealybug infestation. And I'm quick to go for the insecticidal soap. Mealybugs are just no good. However, during their lifespan, which is 2 months, they can eat, again, hundreds of mealybugs and other soft-bodied insects, including aphids, immature stages of scale, spider mites, thrips, the whitefly nymphs, and other soft-bodied insects. But their primary number one is mealybugs. They move around pretty fast too. And so I encourage you to check out the video. I didn't think I could add a video to a program, and I'm going to work on that. But they move around as fast as a ladybug larva. Of course, there are a ladybug larva. It's just in a different form, kind of. But the ladybug larva has developed to look like this. so it can sneak up behind its prey to, attack them. Kind of crazy. But again, unfortunately, because I look so much like mealybugs, they get oftentimes mistaken and are targeted by the pesticides as well. So this one is really weird. How many of you are familiar with parasitic wasps? Parasitic wasps are wasps that are extremely tiny, but they live part of their lives as a parasite inside another insect. Okay, because they're living, well, they lay their eggs either inside the insect or on top of the host insect, as you see here, this tomato hornworm. But because of this, they're tiny. So if there's a larva that's going to hatch and be inside an aphid, you got to imagine it's minuscule. So these are typically wasps that we don't even recognize. We think there may be gnats flying around or very, very tiny, flies or other beneficial insects. There's several hundred species of these wasps in North America. When we let our cilantro go to flower, you will see a lot of parasitic wasps swarming the cilantro. They love cilantro flowers. They love that nectar. So check it out. And you're going to see they're, tiny all the way to very, very small. So it's kind of a trip. Now, this is really fun. These are, the picture on the right is camellia leaves with all these like little, it looks like swallow nests, but these are actually aphid mummies. And if you're not familiar with what aphid mummy is, and this is really cool because normally we don't see this many. The wasp lays its egg inside the aphid. Aphid's just going on doing its little business, and then that egg hatches, and then that larva starts to eat the inside of the aphid, hollowing it out, and then emerging, cutting a perfect round circle to emerge as an adult. So when we have plants, specifically evergreens, I see this a lot on evergreens. If you look a little closer at your aphid infestation, you might notice peppering of these mummies, of these shells, these little puffed shells that were left over. If that's the case, we know for a fact we've got parasitic wasps in the area, and those other aphids are most likely have eggs in them. They just haven't been consumed yet. So please do not go over the pesticide. Let's keep the life cycle going. Now here, this is kind of cool. This is where they got the idea for that movie Aliens with Sigourney Weaver was modeled after the parasitic wasps. Isn't that weird? I don't know. I just recently watched that movie again. I saw it when it first came out, but I didn't remember how scary it was. My goodness, that's a scary movie. Oof. All right. How many of you asked about soldier beetles? Woo, soldier beetles in the house. These are, gosh, I love these little guys. They have so much personality. They're just cruising about. Man, I've got so many in my garden right now. They make me so happy. These are one of the first ones to emerge. So this year I actually saw the ladybugs out before the soldier beetles, which is very unusual, but typically the soldier beetles are out first, cruising around looking for the early season aphids. They are about 1/2 an inch long, so they're much larger. They are in the same family as fireflies or lightning bugs, but they just don't have that light producing organ. So they're going to fly around in a very similar fashion. So if you're familiar with lightning bugs or fireflies, they are, they're related. The soldier beetles specifically like to cruise around and pollinate our flowers and feed off the flower nectar as well as the honeydew from the aphids and other soft-bodied insects. And so they're just, a lot of people think that they are the ones nibbling on the plants. They are not. They're doing no harm to the plants. They're actually helping us. They're our garden allies. I can share that as they're cruising around above ground on our plants, eating a lot of different soft-bodied insects and, pollinating and all of that, their larva is going to be in the ground. It's going to look similar to that ladybug larva where it's like a little alligator, and it will live its entire life stage in the ground, feeding on soil dwelling insects. So the larva is doing a great job below ground, while the soldier beetle is doing a great job above ground. So the soldier beetle is eating soft-bodied insects as well as nectar and pollen and the honeydew secretions. So pretty fun. They really all start to merge at the very beginning of, or late winter, early spring, when the temperatures start to warm up. And gosh, I think that their lifespan, I didn't even notice. I didn't take note of what their lifespan is, but I imagine it's just for probably a few weeks. I'll have to take a note of that. All right. And we are familiar with dragonflies, but I just like to give the dragonflies a shout out because I feel like, at least for me, I kind of forget about them. But we're surrounded by water here in the Bay Area. We are surrounded by the bays and creeks and rivers and marshes and everything in between. And dragonflies are pretty cool. They will lay their eggs. They'll get scattered. The eggs are very tiny, like if you're typing a period on the laptop, that's how tiny. Or if you just make a little dot with your pencil or pen, that's how tiny the eggs are. Probably even smaller. And they get scattered on top of the water or in like kind of muddy creek beds or around some type of plant material that's in a still part of the water. They are going to hatch, and the larva of the dragonfly is going to stay in that water for a number of weeks, all the way up to 2 years. During this time, they are going to just be cruising around and eating other type of, organisms in that water. But then as they emerge as an adult, once they emerge, they're going to be on the hunt to eat flying insects. So the way their legs are created, it's almost like a little basketball hoop, and they just fly around catching the insects and popping them in their mouth as a little snack. Totally cool. Of course, they are going to be living around marshes and ponds and lakes and creeks and such, and their feeding radius is 3 miles out. So they really can handle, they cover a huge area. The thing is that what happens is, well, here's the deal. They're out hunting and eating fungus gnats and mosquitoes and other flying insects, and eating hundreds of them. But we really want to protect them. And the way we do that is by reducing or making a choice when it comes to the chemicals we use around our home. So not only pesticides, but any chemicals that find their way into the waterways are going to be detrimental to them. They're very sensitive. The larva is very sensitive and can get killed off very easily. So that's just one thing to consider, is when we go for a pesticide or we go for some type of a cleaning agent or solvent or anything that we need to use around the home, try to consider the dragonflies and go for something that's going to be eco-friendly, plant-based, and biodegradable to help support them. All right. So for those of you that are not a fan of spiders, I am so sorry. I tried to find some really cute pictures. So I'm a huge fan of the crab spider, which you'll see the 3 pictures, the top 2 and the bottom right. And then this little picture on the left I found online. It's really cute. I know not everyone's into the spider. Some people are freaked out. But not all spiders. In fact, 70% of spiders do not weave webs. Most of the spiders are actually going to be hanging out on the ground, hunting, or hanging out at the base of plants or in the flowers, as these crowd spiders are, waiting for the prey to come. So what I'd like to, and these are tiny, very tiny. It's even, again, it's one of those things where you could easily not notice them, and then you happen to see something and you look a little closer, you're like, wow, hey, check out that little spider, super cute. All spiders are going to be predaceous, eating mainly insects, other spiders, and related arthropods. There's hundreds of species of crab spiders in North America. But something I just also like to share is that when spiders are super beneficial. In fact, they're the most beneficial insect on the entire planet, because we've got spiders on every continent. And if we were to gather up all the food that all the spiders eat in a year, it would equal the weight of 50 million people, which is amazing. So what I'm sharing is that I hope that you could just have a little bit more tolerance for them, maybe scoop them up and get them outside, when we're gardening outside, if you happen to come upon one, they want to run away. They don't want to be near us. They're more scared of us than we're scared of them. They really are crazy. Like they really don't want to be near us. They don't want to touch us. They don't want to bite us. If you'd like more information on spiders and the different types of spiders in the area, there's a really great link on the UC IPM website that is all the common garden spiders in the area. It's pretty fun. Check it out. All right, what the heck is this? Beneficial nematodes. So beneficial nematodes prey on soil living organisms. So these are little soil organisms that are strictly live in the soil. They are going to just feed on other insects that live in the soil, such as lawn grubs, flea larvae, excessive ant colonies, vegetable leaf miner larva, cucumber beetle larva, anything that is like a lot of insects during their larval phase either will overwinter in the soil or they'll be in the soil at some point. Thrips, if you've got a lot of thrips, thrip larva, beneficial nematodes will feed on them. It's kind of cool. Weevil larva, you know, things like that. You can purchase them at your local garden center or online. This is a picture of the nematodes attacking a fungus gnat larva. So fungus gnat larva is already minuscule. So you can see how tiny, microscopic the nematodes are. Totally crazy. But they're really fun. So I like to let you guys know about them. All right, and then of course our bees and other pollinators, we like to keep in mind that they're doing a lot of great work for us, harvesting our food crops. So I always like to make sure I have a lot of flowers for them. And we want to invite our beneficials, and how we do that is by planting a lot of flowers. So I like to ask, what do these flowers have in common? Well, you might say that there's a lot of bright colors, which there is. And remember, white is even a bright color in the garden. But what these have in common is that they either look like sunflowers or daisies, or they're clusters of tiny flowers. So we've got the alyssum in the bottom left corner that's kind of hidden, or the yarrow, and then the Gaillardia and the erigeron and cosmos. Now the daisy-like flowers, like my aster here and the ones on the screen, now that might look like a single flower, but actually the petals are raised. That's what's attracting the insects. And the middle button, that golden yellow button in the middle, is actually hundreds of tiny little flowers, which attracts our tiny little insects. Because so far what we've learned is most of the beneficial insects we're looking at that are would like to enjoy nectar from a flower are tiny. So that is why it's so important to have a variety of tiny flowers. So flowers for beneficials are flowers that look like daisies or sunflowers, such as erigeron, cosmos, asters, Gaillardia, rudbeckia, coreopsis, so many more. Flowers that grow in clusters of tiny flowers. So yarrow, alyssum, ceanothus, lavender, agastache, mint. I just got a coyote mint because it's a native. It's clusters of little flowers that will be blooming through June and July. It also is hummingbird and butterfly attractant as well, beyond the beneficial insects. So a lot of times these flowering plants actually feed a lot of other things beyond our beneficials. And so for more information, you can check out these really awesome resources. So the local master gardeners are always going to have a super neat list of plants that attract beneficials. Of course, Our Water, Our World, you can see the fact sheets of healthy gardens. This is a list of natives and the 10 most wanted good bugs in your garden. That is also going to be on the website, and it'll have a list of plants there as well. And then of course, the California Native Plant Society will have a really neat list of plants that attract beneficials and other pollinators. And I sent everyone a scan of a worksheet from this workbook. This is an activity guide for kids, Pester Pal. It is, Our Water, Our World just changed the website. So I'm not sure if it's on the website at the moment, but if you're interested, email me. I can most likely just mail you a copy, or I could get you a PDF of it. And other things that are beneficial beyond our insects, it's going to be birds, frogs, bats, and lizards, salamanders, and snakes. But I want to just share a second. The birds do an amazing job at keeping a lot of pest insects under wraps. They are just coming in and feeding. I mean, that's kind of what they do. 90% of birds at some point of life in their lifespan are consuming insects. This includes hummingbirds. So I like to kind of create a habitat or a garden that's going to invite the birds and be really friendly to them. And that means having some trees and shrubs, and also really very importantly to reduce pesticides. And then having plants like echinacea that, or Rebecca, sunflowers, they eat the seeds of these plants. So that's something else to keep in mind. Frogs. Okay, this little guy was in my green bean tower a couple years ago, and I was really surprised to see him because he was just up there, totally cruising, happy as could be, eating aphids. They eat slugs and snails. They eat worms. They eat all kinds of little insects and bugs and stuff. So they do a lot of good for us. Bats are super awesome. We have, what is it? I think 16 different species of bats throughout the Bay Area. And I think there's like 400 species in California. Let me just get that one right. I have to make sure. 16 species of native bats around the Bay Area. And I don't have what we have in California. I don't think it was as many as I said. And I'm getting my facts mixed up. That's why I need my notes. Anyway, depending on the species, they're going to roost in a variety of places. So trees, other structures, but they come out at night and they are just on the hunt for flying insects like mosquitoes and moths and stuff. And so they do an amazing job at controlling pests that we don't want around our gardens. So they are very important. They are very, very important. And then, of course, okay, one of my favorites, and this has been kind of going around the interwebs lately, is the Western fence lizard. So the Western fence lizard really loves the heat. They will start laying eggs now, and then they'll start to hatch in like July, August. The cool thing about the lizards, well, they're eating a lot of insects like beetles and grasshoppers and crickets and things like that. But here's the thing, when a tick goes to feed on its blood, the lizard has a protein in it that will neutralize the Lyme's disease in the tick. So then that tick no longer has Lyme's disease. So that's why the lizards are so important. And that's another reason why we don't have, large cases of Lyme's disease in California. So that's kind of fun. That's kind of fun, right? All right, so let's just talk about, we'll take the next few minutes to talk about how we set our gardens up for success. So we're going to plant a variety of trees, shrubs, and perennials. We're going to offer a water source, and a water source could just be a glazed saucer with some pebbles in it. And we're filling it up with water. And the reason why the pebbles are there, because the pebbles are going to be sticking up above the water. So the pollinators and the beneficial insects can land on those little rocks as a landing pad and be able to access water. And the water evaporates very quickly, so we don't have to worry about mosquitoes. We want to let sunflowers go to seed. As I mentioned, we're not going to deadhead all of them because we want to, attract the birds and such. We're going to use chunky arbor mulch if we can to provide shelter for many of the good insects. And we're going to leave a section of the garden not mulch. We're going to leave it uncultivated and raw and natural for our ground nesting bees, because 70% of our native bees are ground nesters. They're going to take advantage of abandoned like ground beetle, little cavities and things like that, where they will nest and lay their eggs. And then we want to avoid and reduce pesticide usage. And I'm talking even about the eco-friendlies. So the chemical controls, which are the pesticides, eco-friendlies is what I'm specifically talking about. We're always going to use them as the last resort. We want to know the pest and only target that pest. We do not need to spray down the whole garden. I know sometimes we get a little nervous or anxious, but trust me, the pest that you are trying to target is specifically going to really be just enjoying that plant. Usually it won't be bothering other plants. We want to spot apply. We're always going to use less toxic and eco-friendly. We always want to spray at the end of the day. So understand that our pollinators are still out actively cruising, as well as our beneficial insects. Remember, I mentioned how I like to go out, as my colleague does, at sundown to check to see if we could find any Surfeit Fly larvae. Well, it's a good idea if we are going to apply pesticide to spray very late after sundown when pollinators are back in their hives, in their nests, and the beneficial insects are less active. We always want to avoid spraying trees when they're in bloom because we could be killing off a lot of beneficial insects, and we really want to understand the consequences of our actions. Something just to share. We really, this is a big one, everyone. These are very popular products because they're easy to use. However, we want to watch out for products containing neonicotinoids. Common neonics are all of these active ingredients. These are systemic pesticides that we will apply either as a spray on or a soil drench where we're mixing it with water and we're watering it around the plant. It gets absorbed through the root system or through the cell structure of the plant, moving through the entire cell structure of that plant, including the pollen and the nectar. And any insects that feed off of these plants are going to die. And then any critters that come over and eat those pests that just ate this pesticide are also going to be impacted. So please be mindful. We don't need to use these. Trust me, I've been gardening professionally for a long time and I know how to manage these problems without them. If you'd like to learn more about your pesticides and the impact of pesticides on pollinators, this is a really awesome resource. I wrote it on your resource page that you received. And then the key here is to make sure we can always identify the pest in question. If we can't identify it, it's going to be really challenging to solve the problem because we want to understand the pest. We want to understand the life cycle of that pest. We want to understand its habitat and the timing. And then we want to know who are the natural enemies of this pest. Are they present? Because if they are, let's just let them take care of it. So right now, I just want to share a couple of things. It's really hard to identify pests in the garden. This is our Mealybug destroyer feeding on mealybugs. This is a flea beetle feeding on foliage of seedlings and leafy greens. Good bug, bad bug. See how, and they're both very, very tiny, very easy to mistake them. Here's our cucumber beetle, a real pest. And then here's our mildew eating lady beetle. So they can, sometimes I've seen this look a little bit more olivey, so very mistaken for a bad bug over a good bug. And then here is our damsel bug preying on a wide variety of small insects, whereas this is our leaf-footed bug that's a pest for tomatoes and pomegranates. So again, good bug and bad bug, they both look really similar. So how do we find out about this? We check out some online resources. We've got our Water, Our World website, and we've got the UCIPM website. UCIPM is really awesome because in the search button, I just will type in what the plant is. Let's say it's rosemary. I don't know what's eating my rosemary. And rosemary will come up. That page will have a list of all of the pests and diseases that rosemary can be affected with. And through process elimination, I can figure out what the pest is. So it's a really great website that's a wealth of information. It also has these really cool quick tip cards that talk about beneficial predators and different types of ladybugs. And then this is a cool resource I really like to introduce you to if you're not familiar with already. It's the bugguide.net. You could take a picture of your insect, email it to them. I've had a reply within like 30 minutes. I mean, they're amazing. And then the National Pesticide Information Center, not only is this also a really fantastic website to understand pesticides better, like what you have, how that active ingredient works. And I'm talking about even the ecos, the less toxic products. This is really going to help you understand how your pesticide works. But it also has this really cool list of natural enemies. So check it out. So in close, what I like to share is when we try to pick out anything by itself, we find it hitched to everything else in the universe. Everything's connected. This is a Surfeit Fly on my thumb. These are my little friends that follow me around the garden. They make me so happy. So I just like to thank you so much for joining today. I want to take the time to go through your questions. However, if you've got to jump off, jump off. I really appreciate all of your time and attention. So thank you so much for joining us. It was really fun, really fun.